She is the author of 7 books, including Sad Math, winner of the 2014 Moon City Press Poetry Prize, Hereafter, winner of the 2024 Bath Novella and Flash Contest and Other Emergencies, forthcoming from Moon City Press in 2025. Her work has appeared Her work has appeared in many literary journals and anthologized in New Micro, Exceptionally Short Fiction in Norton 2018, and Best Microfiction in 2019 through 2022. Among her awards are poetry fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and the Saltonstall Foundation. And on top of that, I just missed her at St. John Fisher. I graduated the year before she came. However, your teacher, Mr. Thank you, Shipper. I was going to call him Mr. Josh. Mr. Shipper, she taught him in many classes, so we'll have to keep a general rated description of that one. But without further ado, Ms. Freligh.
Thank you. Thank you for that introduction. Each of you should have picked up one of these from your seats. I'm going to put you to work for 10 minutes. I'm going to ask you to do a little writing exercise. This story, what Jimmy remembers, is from Kim Adonisio's book, Jimmy and Rita, which is about a couple of street kids in San Francisco. It came out in 1998 from Boa Editions, which is another kind of bit of synchronicity. Boa Editions is across town in Village Gate. But it's a unique book because it's a novel in verse, which is kind of a popular form now. But at the time, nobody was doing novels in verse. So it's kind of a mix of traditional poetry and prose poetry and flash fictions. But this, what Jimmy remembers, is from that, and it's a really great, it's a great exercise to do because it's, if you're working on, if you've hatched a character in your head, it's a great way to get to know that character a little more. Also, too, if you drop it in the middle of a book, it's great because it's, it provides all kinds of exposition for the reader to understand who your character is. So let me read this, and then I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do the exercise. What Jimmy Remembers by Kim Adonisio. Girls in white stockings and checkered wool jumpers, round white collars, red bows at their throats. Birds in St. Christopher's schoolyard, hundreds of them, black, spread out across the lawn in late afternoon. The brick wall of the steel mill on Dye Street he could see from the living room window. His father in there working, his mother in a shiny black dress coming in at dawn after singing in some nightclub, waking him for school, shivering and dressing over the heating vent in the front hall. Dark blue blazer and black shoes, a puppy that died of distemper put in a shopping bag and into a can in Bushler's Alley. Cotton candy on the boardwalk in Seaside Heights. The Barkers calling, "Hey, Bub. Hey, Sonny, Buster, Skip, you." Mickey, the waffle whiffer, old guy they used to tease by dropping pennies into his coffee at the Meatball Cafe. Touching Mary Prinsky's left breast, just the underside of it, not even getting to the nipple, but that was enough. The black hearse carrying his father through the snow. A semicircle of metal folding chairs. The green faces in avocado leaves smiling down at him. God in the clouds, who art in heaven. His mother, ghost now, wearing a stolen mink, flipping a cigarette from a deck of Luckies. His father moving toward her with a match, cupping his palms around the flame. So basically what I want you to do is just take out something to write with, or your computer, piece of paper, pencil, pen, whatever. Title your exercise, What Blank Remembers. Blank is going to be your character name, okay? And then fill in the blank with, as I said, with a character's name, and write the story using details that fill the character in on that, fill the reader in on that character's background. It'll also fill you in too. The best thing you can do is just keep your hand moving or keep your fingers moving depending on what you're writing with. And I'm going to give you 10 minutes to do it. Just whatever comes up, just let it barf. Okay, go ahead. 1, 2, 3, go. Here you go. Okay, pens down or fingers stopped. Give you a few seconds. Do you have a deck of cards there? That was what I was laughing because that was one of my writer jobs. One summer I dealt blackjack in a casino in Atlantic City. We learned, they teach you how to, like shuffle, do all that. And I don't think I could still do it, but it was, like I'll try and next week I'll be back to teach you how to deal cards. I would love to. They didn't want, there's all kinds of tricks to dealing too, very dangerous. Okay, everybody done? All right. Moving on to the next portion of the program, I thought I'd share with you 6 rules for becoming a writer. So, hey, these are important. 6 rules for becoming a writer. And it'll tell you something a little bit about my background too, and then I'll open it up for a Q&A, and I'll talk more about card dealing if you want. 6 rules for becoming a writer. Rule number 1, study everything. Study English literature to immerse yourself in great writers, from Shakespeare to Toni Morrison. Study computer science to understand how it is to try and fail and try again until you succeed, a vital lesson for any writer. Study sociology to understand social causes and human behavior. Study history to understand the consequences of human behavior and learn that history is cyclical, that it repeats and repeats. Study psychology to understand the human mind. Study biology to understand how the heart works. Study creative writing to understand the heart. Rule number 2, understand that becoming a writer is like embarking on a long journey on foot. There are days you will cover miles and miles under a sunny sky, other days where it's cold and snowing and you walk in frustrated circles. Understand that it's good to have company along the route. Understand that it's especially good to have other writers for company, people who know what it's like to run a marathon one day and limp for days after. People who will support you along the way, telling you you're looking good even when you're not. Understand, too, that it's necessary to journey alone for miles and miles, if only to hear the bird sounds and the rustle of wind in the leaves, how it's necessary to breathe in the world and then exhale by writing about it. Rule number 3, understand that rejection is a process and not an event. It's an editor declining to accept a story or an agent passing on the novel manuscript that you worked on for years and you finally put out for submission. Understand that they are saying no to that story or to that novel, not no to you as a writer. Give yourself permission to write and keep writing. Learn to love the entire process, even the parts that are hard, like rejection. Rule number 4, find a job that you like, one that sustains you both emotionally and financially, but one that doesn't drain your soul. My favorite job was the one I had in Philadelphia, where I was attending graduate school at Temple University. I worked in an office in a center city high-rise, proofreading legal depositions. I made $7 an hour, but the perks were great. The proofreaders had their own room with floor-to-ceiling windows, offering a view of both rivers in Philadelphia, the Schuylkill and the Delaware, and beyond it to New Jersey. My bosses, 2 women, ordered in dinner and paid cab fare home if we worked late. When I punched out each day, I left the work there. I wrote an entire collection of short stories for my thesis in my off hours because work wasn't renting space in my head. Conversely, the toughest job I had was the 3 years when I was a visiting assistant professor at Fisher, during which time my creative writing was mostly limited to writing on student papers, lots and lots and lots of student papers. But that too was valuable because in trying to understand a student's vision for a poem or a story, I learned a lot about my own revision process, how writing is like starting in a dark room and fumbling around the wall for a light switch, how a writer needs to keep fumbling. Rule number 5, write. This goes without saying, but you'd be surprised how many people who profess to be writers don't write, but in fact, write about writing on Substack or social media. My only writing practice these days is to write for at least 15 minutes a day. That's it. I adapted this method for working after attending a writer's conference where the keynote speaker, a famous writer, was asked what advice she had for a beginning writer. Don't get into too many habits, she said, something that went against most of what all of us have been told. Always sit down and write at the same time with the same pen every day. She went on to explain that habits were like going on a restrictive diet. It's fine for a few days. Then you eat a piece of chocolate cake and say, what the hell, I'm done with this. You miss a set time on Friday because the kids are sick or work calls, and come Monday, you might not get back to it. She pointed out that most of us, all of us, don't have time, but we can make time. She advised writers to make time to write at least 50 minutes a day. At some point years ago, I realized I wasn't going to be able to find time to write. So I did start making time, and 15 minutes was completely doable. Write means revising a paragraph or a page, or chasing some research, or writing a new paragraph, or even sending pieces out in the world. That 15 minutes can occur at whatever time of day, wherever I can fit it in. Most days I write much more, but you can get a heck of a lot done in 15 minutes of uninterrupted time. Most of my poetry book, Sad Math, was written that way, and each one has been since, slow and steady. Rule number 6, understand that there are no rules in writing beyond don't deliberately confuse or trick your reader. Make up the rules as you go along, your own rules for writing, and then write. Thank you. Now I will answer questions. Woohoo! Thank you. 15 minutes a day. You should have seen the people's faces in the room when, like that person raised their hand and said, hey, could you give the best advice for a beginning writer? She says, yeah, don't get in any habits. And we're like, people are freaked out. And she went on to explain that, habits is like, if you get into a habit or, then that time when it gets interrupted, you don't go back again. Just like, eating the piece of chocolate cake when you're on a restrictive diet. So yeah, 15 minutes a day, anybody can do it. Like you just did 10 minutes a day, and I saw some of you moving your hands and kept going, and you probably wrote a page or so, right? There you go, see? That was 10 minutes. Just think if you did 10 minutes every day for a year, you'd have a novel. I know, amazing. People who write novels aren't people who, like are special or anything. They're just people who show up every day to do it. Even on the days when it stinks. So yeah. Anybody have any questions they want answered about writing or, anything, how I got into writing? We were talking about that before. What's your name?
Michael Rogers.
Michael? Michael asked me how old I was when I started writing. I think I was always writing, but, never, my parents never said, oh, she's a prodigy, send that poem or that story out. I just, was made up stuff. My sister and I wrote plays and put them on. But when I was in college, I realized that